A little bit out of sync to accommodate the mayor's schedule, and we're very appreciative that Mayor Fiorentini came to join us today. Mayor Fiorentini is going to tell you some more about his involvement with Ed Johnson, but I also recognize that your father worked one floor below him at Haverhill High School in the science labs. Is that right? So why don't we have the mayor come up first, give us his thoughts and greetings and whatever you'd like to do.
Well, thank you very much, Tim. I want to thank you very much for honoring someone that deserves to be honored, and perhaps a long time ago, but I'm glad we were able to do this. Mrs. Johnson, welcome. It's wonderful to see you again. I remember Ed Johnson when I was a high school freshman in a building that I never thought I would see again, but is now where City Hall is today. It was once the old high school, you remember. And I remember him as a shy, believe it or not, 13, how old a freshman, Mr. Madsen? 14, 15?
14.
Shy 14-year-old kid that I was so shy that when I was called upon to give a report in the 8th grade, the teacher constantly berated me that I wouldn't speak. No one could hear me. I kept my head down, and I was afraid to speak in public. But Ed Johnson took that shy 14-year-old boy in my public speaking class and told me that I could do it. He told me to breathe from my stomach. I had no idea what the hell he was talking about. I thought you breathe from your nose or mouth, but eventually I figured it out. And he said, you know, you can do it. Everybody else is just as scared as you are, and you can do it. He told me to breathe from the stomach, and he had that wonderful, tenorous voice where he spoke so deeply, and I admired him so, the way that he would speak, and I wanted to speak like Ed Johnson. And I get up at the microphone in the very spot where I now give inaugural addresses in the City Hall auditorium, and gave my first speech. And I thought the floor would open up and the sky would fall and that everyone would start laughing at me. But he told me I could do it, and I did do it. And I knew from that day on that I wanted to give public speeches. I loved it. And Ed Johnson coached me throughout the whole year that you can speak in public. It's not terrifying. You can do it. Years later, I became the lawyer for WHAV when Ed Setlin, we all remember Ed, was the owner. And I kept in touch with Ed Johnson over the years, even after he retired. And he and my dad were good friends at Haverhill High School. My dad loved teaching. So I want to thank you. I want to take a moment to honor Mr. Johnson, and glad to have your wife here as a man that was an inspiration for me. And Tim, I am so thrilled that you chose this time to honor Ed Johnson, who has been a teacher and mentor for so many of us throughout the years. And why don't we give Tim Coco a round of applause for doing this. I apologize that any time you hear me speak, if it's a speech you truly dislike, Ed Johnson is responsible.
What I'd like to do during this part of the presentation, and there's some mics on the floor, we're going to move to the table for your convenience, I'd like to ask some of you to share your memories of Ed.
There's very little more I can add to what's already been said about Ed, but I would like to say that looking back when radio news was a gold commodity in radio broadcasting, Ed certainly was the epitome of unbiased, factual news.
That someone who was very helpful in me setting up this event and getting me some names and some background was Elinor Curtin Cameron. Elinor, could I call on you to offer some views and insights? I believe you replaced Ed Johnson as head of the English department?
I did. I was very fortunate that Ed kind of tapped me on the shoulder and said, please, please, please do this, and it was a wonderful experience. Thank you. Ed brought the same integrity to the classroom that he brought to the news station. His students loved him because he truly loved them, and you never heard him utter a bad word about any student in the teacher's room or to the student. He respected the kids who were in front of him, and because he respected them, they respected him. And he brought a vitality to what he did, both in his own classroom and in the department, that is rare. And in its universality, he was truly, even and just in the way he approached his colleagues and in the way he approached his students. It was a true joy to work with him.
Thank you very much.
I was not in the English department. I was in social studies, and so I basically looked at Ed from afar, from a different wing as such. But what stands out to me, first of all, was the voice. You could hear that voice down the hallway in a classroom, and you knew automatically who it was, the voice. The second thing about Ed was the calming presence. He just didn't get, sometimes people told me I could get a little excited in the classroom and boisterous at times as such, but not Ed. Yes, sorry there. Not Ed, which was absolutely terrific, because another thing about public speaking that he taught most of the time is that every student had to take public speaking. It was a requirement, a graduation requirement. And so in his classroom, he could have anyone in the school. And as we've already heard, most of these kids would have come to their first speech and be petrified, absolutely petrified. And it was his calming presence, which would just, you can do this. You absolutely can do this. And they did. And these kids learned that, yes, it wasn't the end of the earth, and you were not going to be swallowed up. And that was absolutely great of what he could do.
Pat Sprague Johnson was his wife of 48 years, and if you would like to say something, you're welcome to, but you're certainly not required. Pat was a radio person in her own right, of course, so maybe she can do it.
I just want to say I'm thrilled, and it's just wonderful to remember Ed this way, and he's thrilled too.
Thank you very much.